The artifact was the size of a compact car, shaped like a jagged hourglass and pulsing faintly with a light that didn't match any known spectrum. It floated 20 feet off the ground in the center of a containment dome on the asteroid research station Velith Prime. Around it, representatives from 6 different species debated, scanned, and argued in rotating shifts, each trying to crack its maddening design. Harlan Tripp wasn't supposed to be here. He stood behind a yellow hazard line, arms crossed, watching the conference of aliens with a mixture of curiosity and disbelief. He scratched the side of his neck, brushing off a patch of dry skin that had flaked off from the recycled station air. 2 weeks ago, he'd been on Earth, fixing suborbital engines in Arizona. Then, out of nowhere, the Interstellar Research Cooperative offered him a 6-month contract as a systems technician, mostly because he had a knack for solving things that didn't work the way they were supposed to. He figured he'd be rerouting coolant lines or rebooting satellite arrays. Instead, he was staring at an alien Rubik's Cube the size of a pickup truck that had half the galaxy scrambling for answers. "You're not authorized to linger near the dome perimeter," said a deep, gravelly voice behind him. Harlan turned, already bracing for another warning from the security detail. But it wasn't a security officer. It was the Varnathi delegate, an 8-foot-tall being with skin like polished basalt and a row of bioluminescent nodes down his spine. His name was Kale. "I'm not touching anything." "Just watching," Harlan said, Kale's eyes narrowed. "Then watch somewhere else. This artifact is not your concern. Right, sure, I'll go stare at a wall or something." Harlan turned and walked off, but not before stealing a last glance at the artifact. It had shifted again just slightly. A new seam had opened near the base, like a puzzle box teasing its next move. Back in the technician's bay, Harlan hunched over a diagnostics panel. His job, officially, was to monitor environmental stability in the dome. But whenever he ran a sweep, the artifact's presence threw off the readings in unpredictable ways. Energy spikes, gravity anomalies, even localized time fluctuations so small they were nearly imperceptible, but consistently there. He started logging the data anyway, even though no one asked him to. 3 days later, the dome lost power for 7 minutes. Backup generators kicked in, but when the lights came back on, the artifact had changed shape. Not dramatically, just enough for everyone to notice. The Shaolians blamed the Rithari. The Rithari accused the Civil. The Civil demanded a security audit. Kale, the Varnathi, said nothing. He just observed. Harlan sat alone in the observation lounge that night, staring at the stars outside. He tilted his mug, watching the tea swirl lazily. The artifact still glowed in the center of the dome, indifferent to the chaos it caused. He didn't know why he felt drawn to it. Maybe it was the way it seemed to respond to presence, like it was aware of who was watching. Or maybe it was the fact that everyone was approaching it like a math problem, and he couldn't stop thinking about it like a machine. Machines had logic. They had purpose. Even if you didn't know what it was yet. The next morning, the Civil scientists tried to use a low-frequency harmonic scan. The artifact absorbed the wave and pulsed brighter. One of the Civil collapsed from neural overstimulation. He had to be sedated. Later that day, Kale found Harlan again. "You were monitoring the dome's systems during the blackout," Kale said without preamble. "I was." "I filed a report." Kale handed him a data slate. "Your report was flagged by me. You logged anomalies no one else noticed." Harlan took the slate and read the highlighted entries: gravitational inconsistencies, micro-fluctuations in radiation. A drop in temperature exactly 1 second before the blackout. "I notice patterns. It's just something I do," Harlan said, "then do it again. But this time you will do it from inside the dome." Harlan looked up. "You want me in there with that thing?" Kale nodded once. "You're not a diplomat. You're not a scientist. That makes you unorthodox. The artifact may respond differently to you. Or it could fry my brain like it did to the Civil, possibly. But you're still going in." The dome door hissed open and Harlan stepped inside, his boots touching the metal floor with a faint clang. The air felt heavier, like he'd walked into a room filled with static. The artifact floated silently, its surface rippling with shifting plates and seams. He took one slow step closer, the lights in the dome dimmed. The pulse of the artifact quickened. Harlan stopped, heart pounding. "Do not engage with it directly," Cale's voice crackled over the comms. "Believe me, I wasn't planning to." But the artifact moved. Just a few inches downward, lowering itself to eye level. One of its plates rotated, revealing a shallow recess with 6 indents, 5 circular, 1 triangular, a puzzle interface. He didn't touch it. Instead, he removed his glove and held his hand near the recess. Nothing happened. He tried humming not a song, just a tone. Still nothing, then he crouched and placed his hand on the floor beneath the artifact. The pulse changed. Slower, calmer, he stood again. "You're watching me, aren't you?" he said softly. The artifact gave no answer, but one of the indents glowed faintly. The triangle, for the next 3 hours, Harlan tried everything he could think of. Sounds, vibrations, movement patterns. The artifact responded, but never predictably. Eventually, Cale ordered him out. Back in the decontamination chamber, Harlan sat slumped against the wall, exhausted. "You will go back in tomorrow," Cale said through the intercom. "Yeah, I'm gonna need a nap and a gallon of electrolytes first." The next day, Harlan brought a wrench with him. Not to use on the artifact, just to hold. It was familiar, grounding. He tried a new approach, a rhythm. He walked in circles around the artifact, tapping the floor every 5th step. The glow shifted, then dimmed. Then one of the circular indents lit up. He tapped again. Louder. This time, 2 more indents lit up. It was learning him, or he was learning it. The rest of the station watched in silence. Harlan didn't know what the artifact was doing, but it felt less like a trap now and more like a conversation. Then, on the 7th day, things went wrong. Another delegate Vesic of the Rithari entered the dome unauthorized. He carried a harmonic disruptor, a sleek, dangerous device that pulsed with unstable energy. "Stop!" Harlan shouted, but it was too late. Vesic fired. The wave hit the artifact, and for a moment everything stopped. Then a shockwave exploded outward. Harlan was thrown backwards, slamming into the dome wall. His vision went white. When he woke, he was in the medical bay. His chest felt like it had been stomped on by a truck. Breathing hurt. "A lot." Cale stood near the bed. "You have 3 fractured ribs and a concussion," Cale said. "You will need to remain in recovery for several days." "How bad was it?" Harlan asked weakly. "The artifact is responding aggressively. No one has been allowed near it since, but the pattern you established is still active. We believe it will allow you entry again." "Of course it will," Harlan muttered. "I'm the one who danced with it." He spent 6 days bedridden, then 3 more in physical therapy. Breathing became easier. The headaches faded slowly. When he was cleared, Cale met him with a new set of gear. "No harmonic weapons, no electronics, just you," Cale said. "Don't suppose you've got a manual for this thing now?" Cale didn't answer. Back inside the dome, the artifact floated quietly. It had reshaped again, now more spherical, with the glowing recess expanded into a full panel. Harlan placed his hand on the floor again. The artifact pulsed. "Miss me?" he whispered. The panel unfolded. Inside were hundreds of tiny moving parts, cogs, rods, and what looked like a gyroscopic core. It was a machine. A mechanical puzzle, not just a piece of alien art. He reached toward it slowly. The room darkened. The artifact hummed. Harlan hesitated. Then, without fully knowing why, he pressed his thumb into the triangular port. The artifact froze. A click echoed through the dome. Then it opened. The panel had separated with a sound like stone cracking underwater, revealing a hollow chamber lined with gears the color of rusted copper. They moved in fluid, chaotic patterns, but not randomly. Harlan stood motionless, palm still resting on the triangular port, heart hammering in a way that made his ribs ache. He couldn't tell if the artifact had accepted his input or merely paused to evaluate him. The air had shifted, thicker now, like the humidity before a desert thunderstorm. Nothing had exploded, which was promising. "Kale, it's open," he said quietly. No response. He glanced up. The dome lights flickered once, twice, then stabilized. The comms were dead. Great. The gears clicked again, then retracted inward, revealing a second layer. This time, not mechanical, organic, or at least something that looked like it. Fibrous strands pulsed with a slow rhythm, like veins carrying light instead of blood. They weaved into an intricate mesh, forming a basket around a single object, a cube the size of a fist, matte black and utterly still. Harlan hesitated. Every rational part of his brain screamed not to touch it, but the rest of him, whatever inexplicable part had made him try tapping the floor or humming to a floating alien device, moved his hand toward the cube. The moment his fingers brushed it, the dome floor shifted beneath him. Not physically, perceptually. The walls bent inward, then outward again, impossibly far, like he'd been swatted into a dimension that didn't understand linear geometry. His stomach turned inside out. He dropped to one knee, gagging, but nothing came up. Just dry heaves and a blinding ache behind his eyes, then everything stopped. The dome was still. The cube was in his hand, no alarms, no tremors, just a sudden yawning silence. He stood slowly. The artifact, now dull and inert, hovered with the patience of a monument. The open chamber had closed again, sealing without a trace. The cube remained warm. The dome doors slid open behind him. Kale entered, flanked by 2 station medics and an insectoid delegate whose name Harlan hadn't learned. The medics approached warily, carrying a stretcher between them. "Did you activate it?" Kale asked. "I don't know," Harlan said. "I think it gave me this." He held out the cube. Kale didn't take it. "Put it on the floor," Kale said. Instead, Harlan handed it to the nearest medic. She flinched but took it carefully, slipping it into a containment pouch before nodding for her partner to scan Harlan. "You're pale," she said. "Sweating, dilated pupils. Sit down." "Ribs are still sore," he muttered, lowering himself onto the stretcher. Vision went weird for a second. Like I was inside a kaleidoscope built by someone on bad mushrooms. Color distortions or spatial anomalies. Both. Also nausea. Also this pounding like someone's knocking on the inside of my skull. The medic pressed a scanner to his temple. Blood pressure's high, heart rate too. "Might be neurovascular stress. We'll run a scan back in the bay." As they wheeled him out, Kale followed silently, the cube secured in the medic's grip like it might explode at any second. Back in the medical wing, they ran a series of scans. The neural imaging showed elevated activity in regions not typically active during wakefulness. The medic, a wiry woman from Luna named Maris, didn't try to sugarcoat it. "You've got patterns lighting up in your brain that don't even make sense for a dreaming state," she said. "If I didn't know better, I'd think you were in REM while fully conscious. That's not normal." "I'm aware," Harlan said, rubbing his temples. "You weren't exposed to any known toxins, no radiation surges, but something definitely messed with your equilibrium. You're staying overnight." He didn't argue. The headache alone felt like someone had wedged a tuning fork into his skull and just kept tapping it. Several hours passed. The lights dimmed automatically for the station's night cycle. Harlan lay in the bunk, staring at the ceiling. Across the room, a civil scientist lay comatose from the earlier harmonic scan incident. Machines kept him stable, but no one could say when or if he'd wake. At some point, Kale appeared again, standing just inside the door. "You retrieved the cube," Kale said. "It has not reacted further. Glad to hear it. We have not been able to access it." Harlan turned his head. "So now what? You want me to poke at that too?" Kale didn't answer right away. The Varnathi did not construct the artifact, nor did the Rithari or the Civil. No species present on this station recognizes its origin, yet it responded to you. Maybe it just likes humans. Kale ignored the deflection. The artifact is now inert, but the cube may be a key or a message. We lack your improvisational tendencies. You mean guessing. I mean intuition. Harlan sat up slowly, wincing. You think I can figure out what it does? I think you already have, Kale said. You just don't know it yet. The next morning, he was cleared to walk, though not discharged. He was told to take it easy, which he ignored by heading straight to the research wing. The cube had been placed inside a transparent containment field, suspended in a magnetic cradle. It hadn't moved since. A creel technician floated nearby, limbs curled inward like a sea creature at rest. Its voice was a series of harmonic pulses translated through the station's interface. Object exhibits no emissions, no thermal signature, no weight. Harlan blinked. No weight. Mass registers as null, not low, null. He stepped closer. The cube looked like it should be heavy dense, almost, but it floated in the cradle without any tether. Any idea what it's made of? He asked. The creel emitted a ripple of tones. Material composition, indeterminate, surface resists all known spectrometry. No molecular vibration. So it's not just inert, it's not even really here. That is one interpretation. He stared at the cube, suddenly aware of the way the air felt colder near it, not dramatically but enough to notice, like it was absorbing ambient energy. I want to try something, he said. Kale, who had been observing from an upper platform, descended silently. Explain first, Kale said. I want to place my hand near it, not touch it, just see if it reacts again. Kale gave a single nod. Proceed. The containment field dropped with a soft hiss. Harlan stepped forward, raised his hand, and paused an inch from the cube's surface. Nothing happened. He rotated his hand, palm facing up. The cube remained still. He exhaled slowly, then did the same thing he'd done in the dome. He tapped his fingers against the floor once every few seconds in a steady rhythm. The cube flickered, not visibly. But in his mind, a shape, a symbol. Gone in an instant, he gasped and stumbled back. What did you see? Kale asked immediately. It wasn't visual, not exactly. Harlan rubbed his temple. It was like a thought that didn't come from me, just one flash. A symbol looked like 3 interlocking rings. The creel floated closer. Describe orientation of rings. Horizontal, vertical, diagonal, all overlapping. The creel emitted a series of pulses, then moved to a console, pulling up a projection of similar patterns. None matched exactly. Could be a language, Harlan said. Kale nodded. Or a map. He looked at the cube again. If it's a message, it wants to be understood, just not by force. Kale gestured to the creel. Begin assembling a heuristic interface, no direct scans, passive observation only. As the technicians moved, Harlan leaned against the railing. You know, I was supposed to be fixing coolant lines on a mining station right now, he muttered. Kale didn't look at him. You are not the first human to be underestimated. Oh, I guarantee I still am. Kale paused. Then perhaps the artifact overestimated you. Harlan laughed quietly. Now that sounds more like it. The cube sat in the cradle like a dormant nerve, silent and unreadable. Harlan stood just beyond the barrier, arms at his sides, eyes narrowed. His head still ached faintly, but the worst of it had passed. He hadn't touched the thing again since the flicker the knot thought, and neither had anyone else. The containment room was cooler now, the cradle surrounded by passive sensors built from composites scavenged from 6 different species toolkits. 12 hours had passed since the flicker. Harlan hadn't slept. Maris had checked on him twice and left a nutrient packet with strict instructions and a threat about blood sugar. He'd eaten it without tasting it. Still nothing, said the creel technician, hovering just above the floor, appendages folded inwards. No emissions. No change in structure. We have exhausted current interpretive models. It's probably waiting for a magic word, Harlan muttered, rubbing his eyes. Or maybe a kazoo solo. Kale didn't laugh. He rarely did. Instead, he stepped into the room, his gait deliberate, a slow lowering of mass rather than movement. The cube is not inert, it is withholding. Yeah, well, so is my landlord, Harlan said. At least he returns calls eventually. Kale stopped beside him, arms folded in the Varnathi way that resembled a coiled spring. You stated you saw a symbol. Felt one. Like it was slipped into my head for half a second, interlocking rings. That's all. We've correlated that structure with several mythos archives, the creel added. No match. Closest parallel exists in a pre-contact Terran sculpture from 2,000 years ago. Decorative only. Well, that's comforting, Harlan said. Maybe it's just a really fancy paperweight. Kale tilted his head. You are still experiencing no residual cognitive effects. Nothing new, just tired, bit of eye twitching, I'll live. Your neuroimaging suggests otherwise. Harlan turned. You scan me again. You were monitored remotely, Kale replied. Your brain activity spikes when you're near it, particularly when unprompted. I'm not doing that on purpose. We suspect it is mutual. Harlan exhaled slowly. All right. Let's try something unscientific. Kale said nothing, which Harlan took as permission. He stepped closer to the cube. This time he didn't raise his hand or hum or tap anything. Instead, he crouched, resting on the balls of his feet, staring at it like it might blink. I don't know if you're conscious, he said, but I think you want to be understood, so here's the deal. No more guessing games, no more migraines. Show me something I can actually work with. The cube did nothing. He waited another minute, then stood. Worth a shot. The creel adjusted a sensor. We detected a microfluctuation in ambient pressure, very brief. How brief? 3 nanoseconds. Kale's shoulders shifted, an expression of focused calculation. It responded, imperceptibly but deliberately. Could be coincidental, Harlan said. Coincidence implies probability. This implies intent. Kale turned slowly toward him. You are not a researcher. You are not trained in protocol. That is why it responds. Because I don't know better. Because you do not expect it to follow rules. Harlan paced once. So what now? I sit here and monologue at it until it decides I'm charming enough. You will attempt to engage it again, Kale said. The creel hovered backward, making space. We will observe, Harlan sighed. All right. Let's see what happens when I stop trying. He sat cross-legged on the floor, closed his eyes, and let his breathing settle. He thought about nothing in particular, just the hum of the station, the subtle shifts in pressure, the way recycled air always tasted faintly metallic. After what felt like 20 minutes, he opened his eyes. The cube had rotated, not visibly. It hadn't moved in space. But its surface now bore an indentation, a new recess, shallow and rectangular, no larger than a keycard. Did you see that? He asked quietly. Kale nodded once. It altered while you were unfocused, intentionally. The creel floated closer, analyzing. No energy discharge, no mechanical movement. The change was quantum-level reconfiguration. Harlan stood slowly. Looks like a slot. Kale moved beside him. For what? He held up his wrist, revealing his station ID band. Could be this. Kale extended a hand. Allow me. Harlan hesitated, then slipped off the band and handed it over. Kale approached the cradle and with deliberate care inserted the card into the recess. The cube responded immediately. A soft sound filled the room, not mechanical, not vocal. More like a chord played on an instrument no one had invented yet. The lights dimmed. The cradle disengaged and the cube lifted from its platform, floating 3 inches into the air. Step back, Kale said. Harlan didn't move. No, I need to see this. The cube rotated again, its sides unfolding like petals. Inside was nothing, just empty space. Then, from that emptiness, a projection formed. Not a hologram. A field of data, suspended in air, densely packed and shifting. Symbols, equations, schematics, all in constant flux. The creel emitted a surprised trill. This is not storage, it is generation, a recursive data seed. Kale stared, unmoving. Context, the projection changed, cycling through layers of imagery, a star map, a sequence of pulses, a waveform. Then, unexpectedly, a human handprint. Harlan stepped forward. That's mine. Confirmed, the creel said. It matches your biometric scans. Kale's expression darkened. It was prepared for you. The projection stilled. A final image appeared, a sphere surrounded by orbiting structures, each labeled with symbols untranslatable even by the creel's linguistic matrices. Unknown system, the creel said. Coordinates do not correspond to any mapped sector. Kale turned to Harlan. It is a location. And an invitation, Harlan said, or a warning. The cube reassembled itself, folding shut like a flower at dusk. The projection vanished, the cradle re-engaged, locking it in place. Kale stepped back. The artifact did not respond to any known species, only you. This was not random. I'm not special, Harlan said. I just didn't try to control it. That distinction may be the reason your species survived first contact. The creel emitted a ripple of agreement. Pattern suggests the artifact was designed with adaptive thresholds. It required a variable element. Humanity provided that. Harlan rubbed the back of his neck. So what now? Do you go there? Kale was silent. Then, we are not equipped. That system is beyond known jump lanes. You think I should go? You already have its attention. Maris entered the room holding a tablet. Before anyone launches someone into the void, quick update, your vitals are stable. Whatever it did to your brain, it's fading. You're not leaking neurotransmitters or hallucinating, so that's nice. Good to know, Harlan said. She pointed at him. And you're taking 48 hours off. I don't care if a god pokes you through the wall. You're eating, hydrating, and sleeping. Harlan looked at Kale. Orders are orders, Kale nodded. Understood, the cube will remain secured. You will remain under observation. Maris narrowed her eyes. And if he so much as glances at a glowing rock, I'm sedating him. 2 days later, after rest, hydration, and a grudgingly accepted full-body scan, Harlan returned to the observation room. The cube hadn't changed. It didn't need to. The message had been delivered, and according to the creel, it was already unraveling itself in the station's data bank slowly, safely, and without further incident. Kale approached, holding a simple data slate. The coordinates have been mapped, he said. A probe will be dispatched. No crew, Harlan nodded. Probably smart. Kale hesitated a moment longer. You interpreted what we could not. That will be remembered. I didn't solve it, Harlan said. I just listened. Kale tilted his head. That distinction may be the most human trait of all. And with that, the artifact, the cube, and the mystery ceased to be a crisis. It became a curiosity again, one among many in the galaxy. Harlan finally left the observation room, not with answers, but with something better. The knowledge that sometimes the universe didn't need conquering. Sometimes it just needed a good listener.